So while they're getting settled and kind of wrapping their brains around being in the hot seat, we'll start with Kathy. Tell us about some of the technology and the imaging and how that might make the election process more secure or efficient.
Hi, I'm Kathy Harms, and I am from Williamson County, where we did use Dominion voting machines. And we do want to change this technology. We met Mark last May when he visited in Nashville, and we have the ballot, and we have been presenting this ballot all over the state of Tennessee to our legislators and to citizens like you that have asked for this information and how can we make our elections more secure. It starts with the ballot. The ballot is the currency of an election. It should be at currency grade standards where it cannot be counterfeited. So to answer that question, the technology does not have to come with a plug that goes into the wall. The technology should be in the ballot. So that's where it starts.
All right. So, and I'll kick this to one of our legislators. We're still using the current voting machines in Tennessee. Do you see a move to, whether it's paper ballots or a hybrid system, is there an appetite in the General Assembly to do something? Because I put it this way. I've got a house, and if I don't maintain my roof, it's going to start leaking. So I have two options. I can maintain it, or I can wait until we're in a crisis and then try to do something about it. So why aren't we proactive?
Well, I think some of us are trying to get there. There's a lot of talk and discussion. I have a couple election bills that I just drew a blank. Tennessee stands. Gary Humble brought to me this last week that I'm
Gary Humble, ladies and gentlemen.
that I'm going to file this next week. But there is a lot of talk. Bruce has done some stuff in the past with the about the watermark on the absentee ballot, and I'll pass this down. Bruce might have a little bit more to add. Oh, you got one down there.
So, first of all, I want to thank all of you all for doing this. I want to thank Gary Humble for putting this on. I couldn't have done it, and I knew this is so important to so many Tennesseans. So first of all, thank you, and thank you all for being here. In my experience, there's the appetite for legislators to do something and fix a bunch of these problems it's not there yet with many of them. We need more representatives there like Todd Warner, myself, and a few others. There's a group of us, but we need more like that. And that will never change unless you all put the pressure on them and you either get them to adopt the policies you want or you put in legislators that are going to carry the policies that you want done. So I just spoke with Mark, and I spoke with Mark several months ago about some election integrity issues because I was reaching out for him for help because he's been a huge leader in this area. And so I showed him a ballot measure I have right now, and it's a baby step in Tennessee because unfortunately we just don't have the votes, but it's House Bill 2078. I just refiled it. 2074, House Bill 2074. I still have to get a Senate sponsor. I'm hoping Senator Bowling or Mark Pody or Joey Hensley will file this bill. It at least pushes Tennessee into you either have to have a hand-marked ballot, you can have a machine-marked ballot, and it has to be either hand-counted or you can run it through a separate tabulator. That's better than what we've got in Tennessee right now because there's a bunch of jurisdictions and every county can do what they want to do with the vendors that are approved. Some of them are using the DREs, and like Garland said, there's no way to verify those, check the votes or anything. So I'm trying to make some baby steps, and I had to peel some of the provisions in this bill down some because I was already getting pushback from vendors and other folks. So I did put a provision in there where poll watchers cannot be excluded from observing the counting process for less than normal vision sight, so no more than 3 feet, because we saw what happened in Georgia, some other jurisdictions having them, 10, 20 feet behind some plexiglass or something like that. I certainly didn't want that to happen. And you guys may or may not be aware, I mean, there was an effort by the Democrats to get our voting laws changed, and they went to Chancellor Lau in Davis and Nashville, and they tried to get it changed and went to Supreme Court, and they, thank God, put a stop to some of that. So It was a concerted effort, and that's how we lost the election in 2020, because it was stolen from us. So anyway, we're trying.
Well, so here's a question, Garland, Bennie, any of you guys can get this. You know, obviously, let's say hypothetically, Tennessee, we take the lead on something, right? We're gonna tackle this, and Georgia does it as well. We certainly don't want to federalize elections. No. But what do we do? How do we put pressure on other states to do the same thing?
Okay, would you trust your election to an organization that loses 15 million ballots? That's what these jokers are asking you to do. And I'd like to go back to something for just a minute. Which thing do you think is more valuable, this $100 bill or this ballot? Why? It awards power. This is fiat currency. It's worth 3 cents, actually less than 3 cents. Okay? So, just a brief comment, if you don't mind, on legislators who, I'm going to use the cowardice word. How many of you know what the Overton window is? Okay, good. We've got a pretty educated group here. The Overton window is where the folks on the liberal side of the equation, I'm not talking about leftists, I'm talking about liberals, and the folks on the conservative side actually come together in a moment and say, we recognize that we need to have change. And they can come to an agreement on policy. There's a reason that I am 20 points ahead of everyone in the Secretary of State race in Arizona. Do you know what that is? Maybe actually Georgia would be the wrong place to say this. Y'all heard of Sherman's March to the Sea? I am taking no prisoners on this. This is about the saving of our republic. And if I can't find courageous people, by the way, I do have some courageous people. Senator Sonny Borelli, Representative Leo Biasucci, Wendy Rogers, some of those folks, they're standing next to me. Where the hell is everybody else? So it just takes one person to be a champion for you. And I will tell you that you need to begin writing letters, making phone calls, sending emails, and you become that squeaky wheel that won't shut up. The governor should know every one of your names, all right?
Bennie?
Yeah, I'd like to reference the consent of the governed.
Thank you.
I think that's as smart and simple as it needs to be. We at the county levels know our precincts better than any federal jurisdiction can. We understand the patterns. We understand that in a Democrat area, there could be a beloved Republican, but not all beloved Republicans. There's a lot of things that change when you come into the local area. So you cannot do that at the federal level. Just look at all the other federal laws. You can't do that at the federal level. Also, you have states' rights. But to the previous question, I would like to challenge all of the flock to read the Bible and look at Section 2-20. It's the Tennessee Voter Confidence Act. It was passed like in 2008. I don't think any of it is being enforced, but there's a section in there, 2-220 to 101, says the utilization of precinct-based scanners, and it defines what a voter-verified paper trail is. It means a permanent individual ballot that is marked manually by the voter. And they hand marked paper ballots. Right? There's already a lot of teeth in the law, right? There's a lot of teeth already in the law. 2-20-101. If you Google LexisNexis, it's you can just hit the find button and it's there. It's the whole Tennessee Constitution. We'll post it. Yeah, we'll put it on social media, but I'll post it on my social media. I'm at Bennie J Smith BENNIE. Don't give me the Y. There's another one at 2-20-103. I'll tell you, I brought my Bible. Automatic mandatory audits of voter verified paper ballots, random selection of precincts, security of ballots, certification of results. Right, this is already here. This came in like 2008. There are a lot of laws that are on the book, and to help impress the appetite at the legislature, let's just look at what we already got. Like if you're trying to say that you already define what a voter verified ballot is, no QR codes. voter verified. So there probably needs to be a little bit more teeth. There's a lot of ambiguity there. I write code, so the code has to be very specific. So there's I can understand legislative text because I write code, but there's a lot of ambiguity there. But there are ways to tighten this stuff up, and I'd speak to the legislature. You just need people who understand what this stuff looks like when you apply it.
Garland, before you weigh in, obviously we're talking about election integrity, but we're also talking about it matters who leads. We have a supermajority in the state of Tennessee. So my state senator, Joey Hensley, he was a school board member. He became a county commissioner, and now he's a state senator. This young man is a state representative, and he's running for judge. So it matters, for the longest time, we've all focused on the federal races and the big races that are so important, but we forgot the school board. And if the COVID pandemic has taught us anything, is it matters who leads at the local level. When they came to take our freedom in Maury County, I told them to pound sand. I refused to close because it matters who leads. Garland.
Actually, I just want to,
Reading from the Bible, is that what you're doing?
No, to the gentleman's fine point. Benny brings up a great point. In fact, y'all have a cause of action. Uh-huh.
Thank you, man.
You have a cause of action. The legislature hasn't followed its own rules. You have a cause of action in the courts to say, we are blocking this. You can't use electronic tabulation machines because you're not doing paper ballots. It's in the law already. Garland.
Well,
Go ahead, Garland.
Because there's some ambiguity there.
Let's let Garland have a word, and then I have a question regarding paper ballots.
well, I'm going to be quick. I think Benny and Mark have covered it. Just being from Georgia, I would prefer a different analogy than Sherman's March to the Cities.
Okay, so if someone's a detractor
Sorry.
or not a believer in election integrity reform, and they're like, hey, we can just print off a bunch of ballots and we can fake it and we can cheat, what say you?
Well, I think that with what we're promoting here with this little piece of paper is the idea that you will know the number of ballots that are in the system before the election starts. Think about that for a minute. When the election's over, you should never have more ballots in that number.
That's a novel
You might
idea.
have okay, I know it's not Common Core math, but come on now. If you've got more ballots in the system than you had started with, that's a problem, okay? So I think that maybe the biggest thing that this does is actually one of the covert countermeasures, and that is the ability to know exactly how many units there are so that you can establish an audit trail. Now, I didn't mean to be so dismissive with your comment, ma'am. It really means when it comes to why is the legislature not following its own law? Who are the watchers of the watchers? You are. Elections belong to the people, not to the government. Who's the government? I do not trust government, and I'm in government, by the way, in case you didn't know. I do not trust the bureaucracy any further than I can throw any one of them, because they are constantly looking for ways that they can get around things. Instead of, it's so much easier to just comply with the law. Instead, they don't want to do that because it's inconvenient for them. So that's where a group like this comes together in a common cause of action and tells the legislature, you either do what is in the law or you will pay a price. And that could be, we primary you. And by the way, our urge, if you've got a legislator who won't do what you want him to do, primary him. The mere fact that you get in the race will scare him. And that is you exercising your consent to be governed. Thank you very much.
So elections cross into so many other different professions. So I do a lot of Six Sigma process improvement. And for a good decade, I did finance, right? This is a basic reconciliation, and accounting exercise. So I'm gonna roll one of my companies I used to work for in front of the bus, just don't run over them. So I built them this inventory management program. And I showed them that they had $18 million in bad inventory. And basically, they had on the shelves that they had a bunch of iPhone 1s that they thought they could still get $1,000 for. It's just not going to happen. It's bad inventory. You have to get rid of it. So I saved them $10 million, and I asked them for a patent. They wouldn't give me one, so I quit. So this is an inventory exercise. You should always know the full, complete puzzle. You should know how many ballots were printed, how many were issued. The reconciliation of how many you issued should be the exact same number with the voter rolls of people who requested one, the number of participants, how many were spoiled, and if you make all of that public, you can assemble the process back together. Did you tell me that federal, when you were talking to me about the federal at dinner, that at the federal level, it would trump the state level? You was telling me something. All right, so at the federal level, there's a federal statute. It's 20 minutes ago and like 2 margaritas, right? So there's a federal statute that said any record, please hear this.
Oh, yeah, records have to be retained for 22 months.
Any record created in connection to an election has to be preserved for 22 months in a federal election, and it's like 120 or 90 days in the state of Tennessee. What they're preserving is that any single record that's created, they can come back and recreate the crime scene or recreate the calamity or restructure. A plane can crash and they can put every single piece together. How do you put the plane back together? What? But we can't figure out how the election did what it did. So there's a lot of problems, but it's not an accident for sure. But there's a lot, and it's basically a reconciliation and an accounting exercise. Think about it. When we had to break a blue bell, they had like a bad card, and they could tell you back to the SKU in the laboratory. What did they do? They just had a basic numbering system that could tell you this SKU in this region was produced at this date and time, and they could get all the way back. We need the same thing.
If I can, what I want to emphasize to all of you all here is how important it is for you guys to stay together, work together, and bring your friends and family together and be involved with these issues. Tennessee Stands is a great organization. I've been in legislation going on my 4th year. You know, a bunch of the conservative groups out there, they all tend to scatter and just go our own separate directions. We've got to pull together and question your representative, question your state senator, ask them, are you in favor of the paper ballot like Mark Finchem's got? Will you vote for that or not? If you're not going to do that, maybe we should find somebody to run against you, okay?
Well, so one question, and I realize no state's probably getting it right. Is there one state that is more on track? And then, you know, as county mayor, I've got multiple departments, and I'm always looking for best practices. What is Williamson County doing right that I can import to my county? What are they doing wrong that I want to avoid? So are there certain states that are serving as models, whether it's on, you know, just open records or the balloting process or the tracking of data? Are there any stars amongst the field? And they all shake their heads.
So I went out front on Arizona. So I had the privilege of actually being an observer. I went to Arizona. Shout out to Ken Bennett. I don't know if he's watching, but I went down and I consulted Ken Bennett, who was the liaison. He took a lot of arrows because people thought he had way more authority than he actually had. But Ken Bennett was a Yorman to me. God took me to see the Grand Canyon. Again, I'm a Democrat. I'm going down there to observe the process. I thought that when I looked at the legislative laws, John Brakey of Audit USA, he's been down there fighting for ballot images for like 20 years. You know John, right? He told me to tell you hello. There are a lot of people that are fighting for a lot of the right things. But I looked in Arizona and I looked at their state statutes. They do have some really good statutes. Tennessee doesn't have bad statutes. I think the issue is that they're not applied. So Florida's got some really good statutes where you can tell a voter, you can't tell a voter that they can't go in there with a camera and film what they're seeing, right? So there's a lot of good places. What hasn't happened is enough people with the bright minds of seeing this. Like I see this stuff every day, but I could get fired for it. So it's different from a government perspective. I was hired for my ability to do these things. So I'm doing it for a paycheck. It's a little different than governor's appointed. So it's lag behind.
Kathy, and then we're getting near the end, and so what we can do is start with Todd and come this way with kind of closing remarks and parting thoughts, or perhaps a call to action.
Back to the issue of the law.
We can stay.
I'm here.
I'm here till 4:30 tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
stay.
let's
We can
just stay.
stay,
Let's
like-
take more.
Well, go ahead, Kathy.
Back to the question of the law. Heritage, many of you have probably heard of them, they did a scorecard on the laws. Guess, we came in number 3, great election laws. Guess who came in number 1? Georgia. It isn't the question only of the law, it's also the process. And the process needs to be simple, it needs to be transparent, you need to be able to authenticate 3 things in any election. The voter, that they're a legal voter. Number 2, you have to authenticate the ballot, that it was a legitimate ballot. And the last thing is the count. And all those 3 things, these are the pieces that you add up together. So it's how we are going to take this in Tennessee, because Tennessee, when you talk to the officials in Tennessee, they will say to you, Tennessee doesn't have a problem. I can guarantee you Georgia didn't think they had a problem. Arizona maybe didn't think they had a problem. Michigan. So it is in the process, and we have to demand it. And we have to start by first authenticating your ballots.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Tennessee Stand. This has been awesome. And one thing you may not know, and I've heard the statement here mentioned a couple times tonight, that, you know, if we have an issue, maybe we need to reach across the aisle. I don't have a problem with working with Democrats when they're in their right mind. I don't have a problem working with them. Okay? But if some of you, you're in your right mind. We'd get along good. But right now, here in the state, and some of you may realize this and some of you may not, we have a supermajority in the state of Tennessee. We do not need the Democrats. If the Democrats all decide to walk out off the House floor, we can still conduct business because we have a majority of the House there. Yeah. So we need to keep that in mind as you talk to your legislators. Let them know. Say, hey, look, guys, I'm a freshman. I'm in my first term, and that's what's been so disheartening to me being down there is we have a supermajority, and sometimes it seems like we can't get true conservative legislation passed. So with that being said, I probably said enough. I'll pass the mic.
Go ahead.
At the end of the day, it's the consent of the governed, what Bennie said. These machines, he told me when I met him in Memphis, these are not glitches in the software. They're designs in the software. And you are right. We have to get rid of them and support people like Bruce Griffey and Todd and a few others that are up there that are fighting for this. And the machines have to go by this has to happen this year. This is a 2022 General Assembly issue. Make your voice known.
Well, you know, you bring up a good point. You know, I literally heard a legislator who I won't call out where they were talking about election integrity reform, and kind of the pushback was as well, we support the effort, but it can't be implemented by this next election. What say you?
This ballot can be ordered. It can be here. It can be in your precincts, in your counties. Why can't it be done? There is no technology more important, and it is cheaper. This ballot costs 25 cents per 3 million. If you order more, it's cheaper. The ballot that's in the Dominion machine costs 30 cents. It's your taxpayer money. If it can be done, Steve Deace has got a good line. We're not a nation of laws, we're a nation of political will. It's your will, and you go for it.
Okay, well, I know some folks in the audience want to ask some questions. I'm happy to stay as long as we need to. I just wanted to address the Heritage Foundation study to let you know Georgia is not number 1 in election integrity. I think you all know that. They're the worst thing. So the other thing you have to watch out is these politically planted articles. And this is what we saw here. This was, I believe, written by Hans. He got an earful from quite a few of us in Georgia. over that article. Georgia does have good election laws. I don't know if that would be the best in the country, but we don't enforce them, and the Secretary of State doesn't enforce them. They knew that. It was portrayed several times, once by the National Review, as Georgia has the top election integrity in the entire country, and the governor and the Secretary of State, both rhinos, used that to say, look at us, look what we've done. That was a political hit piece, not a hit piece, but it was a political fluff piece to try to save the Secretary of State of Georgia. That's all it was. It had no legitimacy. Hans knew what he was doing. He should have never done it. And they're trying to save the people who need to go. So be really careful. You have to distinguish the people. Just because they have an R behind their name or something, that doesn't, they actually are more of your enemy than any Democrats that you can find anywhere, including mine.
Yeah, we got an expression in Memphis, man. Look, I'm refusing to talk election, Shelby County election as in my capacity as an election commissioner. But I've been in a dogfight, y'all, for like 2 years, fighting ballot marking devices. It's in the courts right now. Our county is suing to purchase ballot marking devices because our Board of County Commissions rejected it. They say we want a hand-marked paper ballot solution. I think we were quoted that paper ballots was supposed to cost $10 million extra for the paper over 4 or 5 years. And you saying it's how much per $3 million?
25 cents.
Man, per sheet. Man. All right, so yeah, for their paper. So that's just really. That's really rough news to hear. I knew that anyway, but she kind of like, and it's got a watermark. All right, that's a little rough. So I'm just not trying to digest it. But all right, so I bring you greetings from the Democratic Party in Shelby County, where the majority of there's a good majority of legislators that are in the Democratic legislature because they're from Shelby County. Shelby County is the largest Democratic population area, so. I'm pretty sure I briefed all of those on this, so I think they're all good with this. I've had the pleasure of dealing with those, and if you guys could reach out to Senator Sarah Kyle, I think she's the person that's leading voting initiatives. In the House is Joe Towns and G.A. Hardaway. I've been able to address the Democratic caucus and talk to them about lots of these issues. There's some more people. I don't want to leave out any names because I address people from East Tennessee too. So maybe we all need to talk because I don't think the Democrats are lost on these issues. It changes depending on where you are. Like the best thing I can underscore, there are bad Democrats in a lot of places. There are bad Republicans in a lot of places. There are bad people everywhere. Like Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai gave me a COVID protocol when I had COVID, because he's a scientist, and later he said when he lost his race for Senate, y'all know Dr. Shiva? Then the guy create the linchpin for the audit, right? Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai said, Benny, I've won every math award in the world. Man, do y'all know anybody can even make a claim like that? He's like, I can't for the life of me figure out how I lost this election. And I contended, and I did a lot of videos with him. I got a lot of trouble, and he's still a friend of mine. He's my MF friend. I said, I'm fighting for his right. The fact that he doesn't know is a problem for me. Like, a guy with that kind of mathematical mind just cannot resolve not having evidence. He's a scientist. He's a Fulbright scholar. He's got 4 degrees from MIT. If this guy can't run for office and respect losing, he ain't gonna, his name means destroyer in India. Like, he's not gonna take that line down. Like he is really upset, and it really pains me that a candidate can run, I don't care what party he in, he can run and not have and be drained like that. And that's just not cool, right? So as far as the Democrat legislature, I think they're in. I just think the conversation needs to be forced. Can y'all call my county? Can y'all go down I'm trying to get hand-marked paper ballots. It looks like a losing effort. That's my hill to die on. That's why I got on the election commission. I want to leave it in better condition than I found it in. I think hand-marked paper ballots is the way.
So there's something about a 3-hour flight from Phoenix to BNA where you've got the phone off and you're not checking your email and you can actually get some work done. Sometime in the next 14 to 21 days, I will be introducing a resolution to reclaim our electors. That means that the Maricopa County election is irredeemably compromised. Now, what does that mean? If there is one statute that is violated, one that disenfranchises a group of voters, it's over. Now, I have 5 pages of evidence in summary that is all the whereases. And fortunately, I had 3 hours to go through the be it therefores, okay? At the end of the day, we have a lot of people who are saying there isn't enough evidence. Okay, let's tease that apart for a second. First of all, enough is a subjective word because only the person who's uttering the word can define enough, right? Shouldn't that be an objective word? If there is a violation of law that impacts a voter or a group of voters and disenfranchises, nullifies their vote, that is sufficient. Well, it's not recall, so you have to be there's some terms of art here that we have to use in the legal world. One of them is to set aside, one of them is to reclaim, one is to recall, and one is to decertify. The point that I'm trying to make here is that under the 10th Amendment, and unfortunately we have a battle going on between 2 groups of legislators in the Arizona House of Representatives. We have a group, and I guess I'm going to have to play this card, and didn't want to, but we have a group that's willfully ignorant. They have no damned idea of what the 10th Amendment says or means. There are limited and discrete powers that the states gave to whom? The federal government. Limited and discrete, enumerated powers. If they're not in the Constitution, the federal government doesn't have those powers. Those powers not awarded by nor prohibited to the states are reserved for the states and to the people. So think about what that's saying. If it's not written in the Constitution, and I defy anybody, I got a $100 bill here, I'll give anybody who can find decertify, reclaim, set aside. I am not finding those words in our Constitution, which means that is an unenumerated power of the state governments. It's that simple. But of course, there are folks who have never read the Federalist Papers. I think it's Federalist 58, Hamilton. Okay? He's very specific that the states were reserving the power. They were giving up just a little bit of power to the federal government for what? To negotiate treaties for common defense, to build arsenals, forts, stockyards, and needful buildings. Not to own vast tracts of land like they do in the West. Okay? My point here is that we have individuals serving in office who don't know the rule book. They don't understand that under the 9th Amendment, no power can disparage your rights. None. Let's go, Brandon. You want to talk about a vaccine mandate? Show me where you have that authority in the federal Constitution. You don't have it. Okay? So my point here is that if you don't know the rule book, you probably have no business being in office. Because you're not going to apply the rule book to whose best advantage? The constituents you serve. Now, I'm going to be hard-nosed on this. Under the 10th Amendment, the states have reserved massive power. And I do mean power. Why? Because the legislature is the closest representation in the government sphere that you will ever have. People are stunned that I answer my phone at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's always on. My phone number's out in my constituents. Yeah, maybe some people will call me a fool, but people are stunned when I answer the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was just going to leave you a voicemail. Well, you got me now. What's going on? No, we're not going to recall anybody. The resolution will declare the contest irredeemably compromised. That means nobody gets to benefit from the 11 electoral college votes from Arizona. Because why? We cannot declare in good faith a winner. Period. And anybody who takes a position otherwise is being willfully ignorant of the terms and conditions of the contract between the people and their government, the 10th Amendment. And I guess I should probably end with that because it's a high note.
Bruce?
I just want to thank all of you again. I want to let you know, at least for Tennessee, there are some legislators. We would pass every piece of legislation and every idea that's been discussed up here tonight. Problem is, there's a very small number of us up there that would do that. And there's generally about 3 people in Tennessee that kind of controls and runs the show. The governor, the Speaker of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House. They have a lot of power and influence over committee chairs and all that stuff, and a lot of people are hesitant to butt heads with them. I was elected to represent my constituents, not make friends at Nashville. So get out there. If your representative, your senator is not going to push for the ideas and values you want, get somebody to run against them.
Hey, Gary with Tennessee Stands. I just want you to know that this conversation is far from over. We're going to continue to put pressure on our legislators and leaders in our state to fix the issues that we know exist here in Tennessee. So there is more opportunity that we're going to be putting forward to have these important discussions around election integrity. I want to thank Garland Favorito, Mark Finchem, Bennie Smith, and everyone who was involved in making this Election Integrity Symposium happen. I also want you to know, if you're watching this video, you can continue this conversation right now on the Freedom Matters podcast. We're so excited. We had Bennie Smith and Garland Favorito from the symposium come back the next day and join us in the studio for an awesome podcast that's going to release on Wednesday, February 2nd. So if you go to the Freedom Matters podcast and look for the episode on Wednesday, February 2nd, we had a great continued conversation with both Bennie and Garland about the issues that we're seeing specifically here in Tennessee. So please go check that conversation out. You can go to tennesseestands.org/podcast. To subscribe. You can also find the Freedom Matters podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. So please go check it out and subscribe. Also, make sure that you go to tennesseestands.org and subscribe to our email newsletter because there's going to be a lot more information coming your way. Thanks so much.